Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. All praise is due to Allah. And may His peace and blessings be upon His last messenger Muhammad, and upon all those who follow the path of righteousness until the last day. We welcome you once again, dear viewers, to another episode on the Hereafter. Another in a series of Islamic programs presented to you by Sharjah Satellite Television from Sharjah in the United Arab Emirates. We've been talking about the situation of the righteous on the Day of Judgment. Those righteous people and what their situation will be like on the Day of Judgment, and what were some of the deeds or actions which they did, which earned them this great benefit, this great gift from Allah. And we talked last time about the 7 that the Prophet, may God's peace and blessings be upon him, mentions in the hadith, the 7 people whom Allah will shade under His throne on the Day of Judgment, the day when there is no shade except the shade of Allah. And again, we mentioned these 7 people mentioned in the hadith are a just ruler, and a youth who grew up worshipping Allah, a man whose heart is attached to the masjid, and a man who was seduced by a woman of beauty and authority, and he refused. He said, "No, I fear Allah." And 2 men who love each other for the sake of Allah. They come together and they part for the sake of Allah, for the pleasure of Allah. And a man who gave out sadaqah secretly, such that his left hand did not know what his right hand was spending. And the 7th being a man who remembers Allah in seclusion, and his eyes overflow with tears. So these are the 7 people mentioned in this hadith, and these are the actions, these were the qualities, the things that they did, that will gain them this reward on the Day of Judgment. The Day of Judgment is 50,000 years long. As we mentioned, the sun is right above the heads of the people, and there is no shade except for the shade of Allah under the throne of Allah on that day. And these 7 people, Allah, because of their deeds, these deeds mentioned in this hadith, Allah will grant them shade under His throne. And so these are not the only ones. This is a hadith, this hadith is mentioning 7. But these are not the only ones whom Allah will provide shade for on the Day of Judgment. There are some others, and we will mention them, we will look at them. In the hadith, the Prophet, may God's peace and blessings be upon him, said, "Whoever extends the time limit for a debtor who is in difficulty, or waives the debt altogether, Allah will shade him with His shade." This is from a hadith narrated by Muslim. So, this is a person who he extends the time limit for a debtor. Somebody owes him money, and he extends the time limit for him. He gives him some extra time to pay it back, or he makes it easy for him, or he waives the debt altogether. He erases it and overlooks it altogether. The person who does this, then Allah will shade him with His shade on the Day of Judgment. Financial difficulty is a great form of distress for people, and especially for people who have families, who have responsibilities. They have people to take care of, and they have responsibilities. Financial difficulty is a disaster. So if a person is in this situation, and that person owes you money, and they borrow money from you, they're in a difficult situation, you lend them some money, and you agree that we'll pay it back at such and such a time. But because they're having some difficulty, they're still having difficulty, if you give that person more time, when the time comes, he's still having difficulty, he hasn't gotten the money, he can't really pay you back right away, the full amount or what have you, you give that person more time. You tell that person, you pay me when you have the money. You take your time, when you have the money, you pay me back. Or you give them a break, or you completely forget the debt. You forgive the debt completely. Because you made it easy on this person in the dunya. Because you made it easy on this person in this life, Allah will make it easy for you on the Day of Judgment. And will provide you with shade on the day in which there is no shade except for the shade of Allah. We're just making it, helping this person, easing this difficulty. And you'll find, you see, when we look at this hadith and the people mentioned in the previous hadith that we were looking at, you find that this shade on the Day of Judgment is usually for people who either went through difficulties in this life or they made things easier for others. Because in the previous hadith it mentions the just ruler. The just ruler, he makes things easy on others. And the man who gives sadaqah secretly, when he's giving sadaqah, he's giving charity, he's helping others, he's making things easy for others, he's relieving the distress of others. And the one was mentioned who was approached by a woman, seduced by a woman, and he refuses. This is a person who is going through difficulty. And so Allah will make it easy for these people on the Day of Judgment. In another similar hadith found in Mishkat al-Masahbeh, the Prophet, may God's peace and blessings be upon him, said, whoever shows leniency towards a debtor or writes off the debt will be in the shade of the throne on the Day of Judgment. So this is the reward for helping people and relieving some of the distress, some of the hardship a person is in. You make things easy for the people. Another person who will be relieved of the distress on the Day of Judgment is the person who strives to meet their brother's needs. The Prophet, may God's peace and blessings be upon him, he said, whoever relieves a believer of distress in this world, Allah will relieve him of some of the distress of the Day of Judgment. Whoever makes things easy for those who are in difficulty, then Allah will make things easy for him in this world and in the next. And whoever conceals the faults of a Muslim in this world, Allah will conceal him and his faults in this world and in the hereafter. Allah will help the slave as long as the slave helps his brother. This is a hadith narrated by Muslim. In a similar hadith narrated in Bukhari, the Prophet, may God's peace and blessings be upon him, said, the Muslim is the brother of his fellow Muslim. He should not mistreat him or let him down. Whoever meets the need of his brother, Allah will meet his needs. And whoever relieves the Muslim of some distress, Allah will relieve him of some of the distresses on the Day of Resurrection. Whoever conceals the faults of a Muslim, Allah will conceal him his faults in this world and the next. So this is something which we underestimate nowadays, and that is the assisting or helping others. It seems like a very minor thing, a very small thing, assisting people, helping people, assisting them. We underestimate the value of this in the Akhirah. And we see from this hadith that by assisting your brother, helping your brother, that it carries with it a very great reward. Sometimes a person, they may have the understanding or the misunderstanding that the deen, the religion, Islam, it's a few rakat, it's fasting in Ramadan, reading some Quran, making some tasbih, some dhikr, and that's all there is to Islam. And then you do whatever you want with others. You can abuse people, you can take advantage of people, you cheat, you steal, you do what you want, and you think that this is being a perfect Muslim. That you're mistreating the people, but you're praying, you're fasting, you're paying your zakat, you're making dhikr, reading Quran, and that person will think that this is, he has a perfect Islam. Treatment of others has a major effect on your deeds. There are people who will enter Jannah exclusively because of their treatment of others. So this is a very serious thing. There are people whom Allah will forgive and who will let them enter into Jannah exclusively because of their treatment of others, how they treated others. They may have had many, many sins, but they did something, they treated some people with kindness and they helped them, and because of this Allah will enter them into paradise. So if you ease the distress of a believer in this world, Allah will ease for you one of the distresses of the many distresses of Akhirah on the Day of Judgment. The Prophet, may God's peace and blessings be upon him, he also mentioned in these hadith that whoever conceals the faults of a Muslim, Allah will conceal his faults on the Day of Judgment. What does this mean? It's talking about whoever conceals the faults of a Muslim, Allah will conceal that person's faults on the Day of Judgment. This is talking about something that you don't want other people to see. We have faults, we have sins, we have shortcomings, certain things which we don't want other people to see. We don't want other people to know about. For example, the sins. If somebody is committing a sin, they might be doing it away from the people. They're doing it in private. They're hiding from the people and they don't want anybody to know about it. They're committing a sin, but they're doing it in private. They're hiding it from the people. They're keeping it away from the people. They're not openly committing this sin. They don't want people to know about it. For example, you have some people whom they pray and they have a lot of iman in their hearts. They're very good Muslims. They're praying, they're fasting, they're following Islam. They have a lot of iman, but they, for example, they may suffer from an alcohol addiction. They have an addiction to alcohol. They're drinking alcohol, which is one of the major sins in Islam. Nevertheless, this person still, in the depths of their heart, they have a lot of love for Allah. And they know that they know their weakness. They know that what they're doing is wrong. And they know that they recognize this weakness and they're asking Allah for forgiveness. They're afflicted with this disaster of addiction and they don't want anybody to know about it. They're addicted. They're drinking alcohol. They want to leave it. They're asking Allah for forgiveness, but because of this addiction, they're drinking. But they're hiding. They don't want anybody to know about it. They're concealing it from everyone. They're concealing it from, they're not doing it in public. So say somehow you come to find out about this. Somehow you come to find out that this person is drinking. And you don't let anyone know about it. You keep this a secret. You make it secret. You come to know about this person's problem. He's committing a sin. It's a major sin. But he's doing it privately. Somehow you come to know about it and you make it secret. You conceal it. When you do this, Allah will conceal for you one of your faults on the Day of Judgment. Because every one of us, we have some privacies or faults that we don't want anyone to know about. Every one of us. Each and every one of us, we have something, some privacy, some faults, something that we don't want anybody to know about. Either it could be thoughts or acts or things that could be done that you don't know, that you don't want anybody to know about. And you're not insisting on that sin. You're asking Allah to forgive you. You've committed a sin. You're not insisting on it and repeating it. You've made that sin and you're asking Allah to forgive you. You're making tawbah. If you conceal that, then on the Day of Judgment, Allah will conceal this sin for you. All of us have sin. So if we conceal the sin of our brother, like as the example we gave, then Allah, this sin that we have, we don't want people to know, Allah will conceal that sin for you on the Day of Judgment. Now, you might wonder, how can you do this when this is something that is illegal? This is something which is haram. Drinking alcohol in Islam is haram. It's haram to drink alcohol in Islam. It is one of the major sins. So a person may wonder, how come it is something good to conceal this sin when it is a major sin and there is a punishment for it? There is a punishment for this. It's a major sin. So a person may wonder, why is it a good thing to conceal this? A person may think, shouldn't I go to the authorities and have the court enforce the law against this person? This person is committing a major sin. The criminal law in Islam, the intent of it is to keep the society clean from any sin that would become public and thus affect the people. And so there's a lot of wisdom that we are not turning our attention to in the laws of Islam. Yes, drinking of alcohol is prohibited. It is haram. Yes, there is punishment for it. But the danger is when the sin becomes public. When the sin is private, it is not affecting anybody in the society. When the sin is being committed privately, in secret, or it's hidden, it is not affecting the people in society. This person is doing that sin alone, in the privacy of their home. Nobody knows about it. Yes, it's a sin, but they're doing it privately. It's between that person and Allah. That sin is not affecting the people in the society. So, when does this become haram? It becomes haram when it is made public. When it is brought out into public, it is being committed now in public, and now it attracts others to it. It's attracting others to this sin. Alcohol, it's not on the minds of the people. But when they see somebody drinking, when they see it being done in public, when they see it being advertised, then it draws the attention of the people. But if it's done in private, it is something done in private, it's still a sin. And Allah may or may not punish that person, but it's a sin if it's being done in private. Yes, it's a sin. Yes, it's wrong. The person should try to leave it. The person should make tawbah and try to leave it. It's still a sin, but it's being done in private, and it's not affecting the society. So there's a possibility that this person one day will make tawbah and will forget about that sin, and he will give it up. And so therefore this sin should be concealed. If you come to know about it, that you conceal this sin of your Muslim brother, and Allah will conceal one of your sins on the Day of Judgment. But the danger is when the sin goes public, because then it affects all of the society. And that's why the hadith says that the Prophet, may God's peace and blessings be upon him, he said that when people make adultery and fornication public, then Allah will inflict them with diseases that did not exist with their fathers. So when adultery and fornication become public, in other words, it's being done, it's being committed in private. But when it's being made public, when it's done in public, because now it's affecting the entire society. So when this is done, the hadith of the Prophet, may God's peace and blessings be upon him, is saying, when the fornication and adultery, when it becomes public, then Allah will inflict those people, will inflict the society with diseases that did not exist in the time of their forefathers. And here we used an extreme example of alcohol, of khamr, which is a major sin, to drive home the point, it was used as an example. But this would apply to any small or minor thing. That when we see, somehow we come to know about one of the faults, one of the shortcomings, one of the sins of our Muslim brother, if it's something which is private, he's not doing it out in the open, it's not affecting the society, we should conceal it for him. Allah says in the Quran, the ones who want evil to spread among the believers, Allah will punish them with a severe punishment in this world and in the hereafter. Some of the scholars say that this applies to the ones who go and they spy on others and then expose their evil deeds to society. They're saying, some of the scholars of the opinion, these are the people, they're going around and they're looking in on everybody, they're spying on everybody, trying to find out any little thing, any little detail, any bad little bit of dirty laundry, what have you, and then they go and they broadcast it in public, and it spreads throughout the society. Talking too much about evil acts of others spreads corruption in itself, and this is something which it should be avoided. And the person who conceals it, who conceals the faults of his brother, then Allah will conceal one of his faults on the Day of Resurrection. With that, dear viewers, we'd like to end for this episode. We hope that you have enjoyed it, and hope that you will continue to join us in the future. Until the next time, we bid you all farewell. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.